Sometimes it isn't good to be right, but when a Prime Minister confirms your worst fears, it becomes clear that a national crisis is coming, stirred up by the government itself. At 9 a.m. on May 12, 2025, my site published an article warning that Prime Minister Keir Starmer's impending immigration policy would harm the UK's social care sector and scapegoat immigrants. I'm Mike Sivier and I've got a hell of a lot to say about this, so stick with it to the end because it will be worth it. Buy us a coffee so I know it's worthwhile, and let's dive into what I wrote on May 12th. I wrote, the Labour government's incoming immigration white paper has been trailed as a tough, technocratic attempt to fix a broken migration system. But peel away the headlines and this is not a rational plan for reform, but a calculated assault on the UK's most vulnerable people, the sick, the elderly, the disabled, wrapped in the populist rhetoric of border control. From longer settlement routes to tougher English language tests, from visa restrictions targeting specific nationalities to new curbs on family rights under the European Convention on Human Rights, Labour's proposals are not just draconian, they are deeply regressive, echoing the very far-right ideologies the party claims to oppose. But nowhere is the cruelty and incoherence more blatant than in the plans to restrict care worker migration. Here, the government isn't simply failing to support a collapsing care system, it is actively helping to dismantle it. The UK's social care sector is not overwhelmed by migrants. It is overwhelmed by decades of political neglect, privatisation and underfunding. Staff shortages have reached catastrophic levels, with an estimated 150,000 vacancies across England alone. Most care providers now say they simply cannot operate without migrant labour. And yet, Labour's new policy will ban the recruitment of care workers from overseas, requiring care homes to prioritise British workers, despite offering no wage increases, no improved working conditions, and no national recruitment strategy. Let's be clear, this is not a practical plan. This is sabotage. Labour officials have pointed to a pool of 10,000 migrant care workers currently in the UK, but unable to work, stranded due to employer failures, visa issues, or lost sponsorship. The new plan reportedly aims to redeploy them to fill the gaps left by the recruitment ban. But this is a fig leaf. The care sector needs 150,000 workers, not 10,000. That shortfall will not be filled by domestic labour unless conditions change dramatically, and Labour has no intention of raising pay to match the skills and sacrifices the job demands. Care work is skilled work. It demands compassion, training, resilience and stamina, I know. But it has been degraded for decades, reduced to a low-wage, low-status sector whose workforce is expected to survive on moral purpose alone. Labour's plan won't reverse this degradation, it weaponises it by asking the public to blame migrants when the system breaks, rather than those in power who engineered its collapse. The government's rhetoric is clear. It blames high migration for systemic failures in housing, the NHS and public services, while cutting off the very workforce that keeps those services afloat. This is not a contradiction, it's the plan. By ending overseas care recruitment while knowing that collapse is imminent, Labour can later say, this is what the public wanted. When people see their relatives left without care, the government won't admit failure, it will blame foreigners again. In doing so, Labour is hoping to outflank Reform UK and the far right by mimicking their policies, their language, even their tone. But this tactic is not only morally bankrupt, it's strategically naive. People who want far-right policies will vote for the far right. They prefer the original to the copy. This is not the first betrayal by Labour. In recent months, the party has turned its fire on parents with more than 2 children by upholding the 2-child benefit cap, pensioners by ending universal winter fuel payments, disabled people by proposing sweeping changes to personal independence payment that will lead to mass disqualification and destitution. And now, by breaking the care sector in the name of migration control, Labour is targeting more of the most defenceless people in the country: the elderly, the sick, the disabled, those whose very survival depends on a functioning care system. This is not centrism. This is not sensible reform. This is a coordinated ideological betrayal of the Labour Party's foundational principles of solidarity, compassion and public provision. Labour once stood for the defence of working people, the vulnerable and the welfare state. It now uses immigration policy as a weapon to punish the very people it once pledged to protect. The public must not be fooled. These policies are not inevitable. They are choices, and they are cruel. No one voted for this kind of country, and no one should accept it in silence. That's what I said, and every word of that was right. And then Keir Starmer got on his hind legs to make the speech we now call Island of Strangers, and made everything much, much worse. Starmer's speech marked a significant departure from Labour's traditional stance on inclusivity and social justice. If you have the stomach for it, you can watch it on YouTube. I'll give you the link down below. By proposing to reduce net migration from 728,000 to around 300,000 people by 2029, extend the residency period for immigrants to obtain permanent status from 5 to 10 years, raise skill and language requirements for foreign workers, and ban overseas recruitment for social care visas, Starmer was not only contradicting Labour's historical principles, but he was also threatening to exacerbate existing challenges in critical sectors like social care. The speech has been met with almost universal condemnation. Labour MPs have expressed concern over the rhetoric resembling far-right narratives. For example, Nadia Watum stated that Starmer's language mimics the scaremongering of the far right. Care sector leaders warned that halting overseas recruitment will worsen the staffing crisis in social care, which heavily relies on migrant workers. Business groups argued that the proposed restrictions could lead to labour shortages in essential industries. So let's ram this point home with a few responses from the social media, shall we?
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government.
We welcome migrants. We don't scapegoat them. Low wages, poor housing, poor public services are not the fault of migrants and people who've come here. They're political failure. Political failure. So we have to make the case for the benefits of migration.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly.
It is clear that once again Starmer has U-turned on the values he once claimed were universal and eternal for the sake of a political gain that probably won't materialise. And everybody saw through him this time. Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, delivered on April 20, 1968, was officially titled Speech on Immigration, but it became widely known for Powell's reference to a line from Virgil's Aeneid. As I look ahead, I am filled with foreboding. Like the Roman, I seem to see the river Tiber flowing, foaming even, with much blood. It strongly criticised mass immigration, particularly from Commonwealth countries, and warned of social unrest if immigration policies were not tightened. The speech sparked intense debate, led to Powell's dismissal from the shadow cabinet, Conservative, and remains one of the most divisive political speeches in British history, well, until now. And now a UK Prime Minister has echoed it, amplifying the racist undertones it arguably contained. I find myself in rare agreement with LBC's Iain Dale.
I can't believe what I heard. It was a speech that, frankly, Nigel Farage could have given. It's a speech Suella Braverman could have given. It's a speech Robert Jenrick could have given. I could not believe I was listening to a Labour Prime Minister making such what I thought were incendiary comments about immigration. Not once did he really mention any benefits from migration. And in one speech, to me, he lost all of the credit that he's built up for his handling of foreign policy. And then he starts talking about an island of strangers, therefore undermining all the careful community cohesion and good relations between our various communities that have built up over the past decades. In one stroke, he's managed to do that. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Probably the best comment of the lot that this writer has seen came from comedian Sam Avery.
Keir Starmer is a walking, talking middle finger to anyone who voted Labour at the last election. I haven't been this disappointed by a party since my cousin took Viagra at my nan's 90th birthday and nearly took me eye out when we all danced to New York, New York. Today, Keir Starmer doubled down on his weird, reform-light immigration moral panic by claiming that the UK is becoming an island of strangers, which is not true, because I've spoke to loads of people I don't know today, and they have all agreed with me that you are a flip-flopping fraud. Is immigration a real issue? Yeah. Especially since we yanked ourselves out of the EU with all the grace of a vasectomy performed with a tin opener. But here's an idea, Keir. Instead of consistently throwing out dog whistle sound bites for all the right-wing gammons who'll never vote for you anyway, why don't you try and fix some of the other broken elements of British society? How about you do just some of the things you promised in your manifesto? Because then you wouldn't have to keep trying to distract us so we don't focus on the real enemy here. Billionaires, gangster utility companies, tax-avoiding multinationals. So far, you've done the exact opposite of what you said you'd do on almost every issue. Imagine going for a meal with this guy. I know I ordered the meat pie, but I would now like the vegan casserole. Keir Starmer is so lacking in core beliefs and conviction, he's more like some lifeless AI experiment that's escaped off a 3D printer like Pinocchio and is somehow running the country.
Starmer's attempt to appeal to right-wing voters has backfired badly, alienating Labour's core supporters without gaining new ones. He has caused rampant distrust among traditional Labour voters who feel betrayed by the party's new direction, increased support for alternative parties that uphold progressive immigration policies, and he may even cause civil unrest if the policies lead to significant disruptions in public services. You'll probably hear an awful lot more of the same over the next few days and weeks as Starmer wades through the river of excrement that he has poured over his government. Suffice to say that Vox Political foresaw the implications of Starmer's policy shift, and the subsequent fallout confirms my fears. As the government moves forward, with these proposals, you need to stay alert and engaged. Make your voice heard. Write to your MP. Share this video. Attend protests. Let's make it clear that this island of strangers stands united against the bigotry and hatred of its mistakenly elected leader. Back in 1968, the people held Powell and his leaders accountable. We need to show that we have moved forward since then. Here's what you can do. Resist, refuse, organise. This isn't just about immigration, it's about what kind of country we want to live in and whether we're willing to let our leaders dismantle compassion, sabotage care, and scapegoat the powerless in our name. Labour's assault on care and migration must not go unchallenged. Here's how you can take action. Write to your MP, whether Labour, Tory, Lib Dem or Independent, and demand they oppose any immigration plans that undermine social care or scapegoat migrant workers. Ask them how they plan to support a care system now being set up to fail. Join or organise local protests. Speak to trade unions, care campaigners, migrant rights groups and disability organisations. If you're not sure where to start, groups like Migrants Organise, DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts, and Care and Support Workers Organise are already fighting this battle. Use your platform. Share this video. Talk to your friends, family, neighbours. Challenge the narrative that pits British people against migrant workers and remind people who the real culprits are. Support the workers and users of care. Amplify their voices. If you or someone you know is directly affected, speak out. Your lived experience is the truth this government hopes to silence. Push for alternative policies. Demand a care system funded properly, staffed fairly, and respected as a cornerstone of any decent society. Demand that workers of all nationalities be paid what they deserve. This is not just a policy dispute, it's a moral crisis, and the only thing that will stop it is collective resistance. We owe it to the carers, we owe it to the people they support, and we owe it to the country we want to become. I've been Mike Sivier, and if you agree, please buy me a coffee. Like, subscribe and comment. Tell us your own experiences if you have any. Stay safe, and you can see me in the next one.